be a sponge, and then bring the juice.
By focusing on your improvement, by focusing on your progress, and eliminating any fixed mindset that you may have and acts of perfectionism, then you encourage your own mastery.
On some level, we do what we want to do 24 hours a day. Now, sometimes it may not seem like that, but if I'm choosing to work instead of sleep, what I'm actually saying is keeping my job is more important than sleeping.
I'm tired of this. I'm tired of getting beat. What can I do to get over this hump? So mentally, that's when I kind of put that forefront, like, hey, it's either all or nothing.
I like to put failure in quotations because I don't believe that failure is true failure if you're looking at it with the right mindset.
The truth is, the journey to greatness is hard. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes focus, and every day you have to decide what you value, what you want to pursue, and what you want to achieve. And if you dig deep enough, if you push hard enough, we all have what it takes to be great. Welcome to the Edge of Greatness. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Edge of Greatness podcast. I'm your host, Charles Schultz, and today I have with me a very special guest, the baseball coach from the Dennison University, leadership expert and author of Let It Rip, Mike Deegan. Thank you so much for taking time to join me today, Mike.
Glad to be on, Charles. Thank you.
Awesome. I've heard you reference many times mindset, and I'm going to focus a lot today on leadership, but I want to start something off a little bit different today. And what is some of the things that you get to do today?
Good choice of words there, Charles. Yeah, I think everything, right? It's all how you try to look at things and frame things. The more you live, you understand that everyone has problems, everyone has obstacles, everyone has struggles, and just that little shift in vocabulary, right, from have to get to can be really special. So, yeah, I get to do a lot of things today. I get to respond to emails. I get to interact with our players. I get to meet new people and interact here on the podcast. So, but yeah, I do appreciate the little shout out there. But yeah, the get to versus have to is really powerful.
Yeah, no, I've been trying my best to implement that over the last few years for myself, and it's made a big difference because some of the harder things become easier when it's part of the get to versus the have to. And I think that's the powerful piece of it, is that we all have tough stuff we have to go through, stuff we have to do on a regular basis that makes other things possible. And if you think of it as a get to.
You nailed it. Absolutely. Couldn't say it better myself.
Recently I've been reading through some of the emails that you send out from your newsletter. I joined it a while back, but one of the emails that you sent out just recently, it really hit me hard. It was a beautiful video. It was Ernie Johnson talking about his adopted son to the University of Alabama. And I don't know how it impacted you, but I'm sitting there, I'm like tearing up, thinking about how powerful this message was and how beautiful this story is. What I want to know is, when you first heard that, what'd that do for you?
Probably a very similar response that you had. I mean, I think it's just a beautiful story in general, right? Just from his adopted son, and just how, I can't remember the exact words he uses in there, but don't take this one, basically about the kid when they're trying to adopt. It's like, don't take this one. This one's not going to work out. And he said, yeah, bring him home. So yeah, it's just a beautiful story there. But then when you unpack it, it's just, just how we look at people throughout the day and how we interact with just about everybody, and also just how important it is to be part of a team. That was also the message in there too, when he talks about how he's a facilitator at TNT. He's not looking to have the limelight put on him. He's looking to shine the light on Charles and Shaq and Kenny. So yeah, I think it's a lesson in servant leadership in some ways, right? Just that we're all in a society where everyone's trying to get theirs and trying to promote themselves. There's just some power in trying to make others shine. And that video, just same thing with that you referenced. I mean, it made me smile. It warmed my heart, and I'm glad you had the same effect on you.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful message, and this one's no good, is I think what he said.
That's what it was. And it no good.
Crushes me to think that there's people out there that feel that way about certain individuals, and that everyone has value is a great message, because you're right. It's more about the team. It's about the servant leadership. And that leads me to my next thing, because like I said, we're going to talk about leadership. What is it about leadership that fascinates you?
Well, I think it's sometimes you use words like we use those words, leadership, and they can become a bit of a buzzword. But I think it's just trying to, to me, there's followers are equally, if not more important than leaders. By the way, I mean I think that's a pretty important distinction. And I think sometimes there's a bad rep with, oh, that person doesn't want to be a leader. That's okay too. But to me, leadership it's moving people, it's moving a group toward a common goal. And when you break it down and when you think about it like that, it's whether it's a baseball coach, a CEO, a teacher in the classroom as we begin school, you really try to take a group and come up with a shared mission, and then just nudge. And I like that word more than move, but just trying to nudge people in that direction. I think when we start off on our leadership journey, especially young coaches, you see people that maybe want to do too much. They think they can just by force of nature drive and insert their will. And you can do that to some extent. You can do that and be successful. There are coaches and leaders that have been successful through history doing that in that way, in that manner. But to me, I think it's more than that. I think it's just trying to nudge and move and get people to collectively buy into doing something greater than themselves. And so that's what fascinates me about leadership. It's just, it's trying to accomplish something special with a group of people.
I love that you mentioned there's a need for followers, because personally for myself, I've found I've done my best leadership work as an assistant and in a role that I'm not fully in charge. I fail more often when I have the full responsibility. And I don't know if that's because I want to focus on specific things and that's where my strengths lie, but in an assistant capacity, when I'm not fully in charge, I do better work. And I've had some really good success as an assistant. I think that's part of me because I want to follow, and I like having a target that's set by something else that then I can go pursue. And that's just how I roll.
That's pretty cool. And that's really good self-awareness, by the way. I mean, that was a long time. I was an assistant for 9 years, and same thing, it was in that role. I don't want to say follower, but and not being the person at the, that's laying the complete foundation. You see their vision, you can kind of see their vision, and it's the same deal. It's leadership in another direction though, right? It's allowing that person to shine. And in my role as an assistant under Coach Brewer at Marietta, I used to always think about it as how can I help him do what he does best? Like, how can I free him up to allow him to do what he does best? So he was, he was phenomenal in certain areas. And if I could take the other things off his plate and just allow him to lean into what he does, like that's really powerful, right? So I think sometimes, you have to be the head coach, you have to be the CEO, and no, I mean, you can make a major, major impact in other roles. And being that first follower, being the person who leads that group is also leadership, just in a different capacity.
Right. And I think that's part of the problem is people they hear the word follower and they don't think of it as a positive. They think of it as, oh, well, you're just somebody who goes along with the role of things. But if you have a good staff and you have a good leadership group, you have the guy on top, but those other people are leaders in smaller capacities doing things that they're good at, and it all facilitates down. And I think that's one of the key components. Would you kind of agree?
Absolutely. And I think, when you're kind of going through it, the organizations and the leaders that I'm most attracted to or most drawn to, however you want to say it, it's a team of teams. It's not. I think the days of just one person being at the top, being the puppet master, I think that leadership model's a little bit dated and a little bit broken. And so, it's so while you may not be the head coach or you may not be at the top of that organization, you still have autonomy and you still have responsibility to fulfill. And so, in that regard, that's kind of how I see leadership in general. I don't see it as, and I'm using my hands a lot here, I know this is going to be audio, but I don't see it as like one person at the top and then they dictate everything. I see it as a group of people really working and forming and storming to try to make something special happen. But I don't think one person can do it anymore. I just don't. I think information moves too fast. I think people need too much. So everybody has to contribute no matter what that role may be.
Yeah, no, I'm in total agreement with that. I think the best leaders find ways to give their leadership group assignments and jobs that are to their strengths and then they challenge each other along the way to continue to improve and do new things and develop. And that's where the journey goes.
Sure.
I heard you mention a couple times through some different interviews I was listening to that your secret talent is curiosity. Mm-hmm. Tell me more.
Yeah. You know, I and I don't know if it's maybe something that's, I guess maybe it's a little bit natural for me. And that curiosity, I never feel like I know it all. Like I don't, someone asked me the other day, like, what are you an expert in? And I don't know what I'm an expert in. I always am just trying to look and learn and listen. And so in most conversations that I have, I'm going to be doing a lot more listening than I am talking. And I think that's curiosity, right? You're always, I feel like I know what I know. Like I have a pretty good grasp of what I learn and what I read. But when I connect with anybody, you know, really anyone on the planet, I think there's always something to learn from that person or that situation. So I think that's where my curiosity comes in. Now, off of that, I will say that a downfall of that is that, you know, I think curiosity and humility kind of go together. And I think I have those two things. But that humility sometimes can lead to a lack of confidence. It can lead to a lack of being maybe as assertive as I can be in certain situations. So that's the rub that I work with. So yeah, I have the curiosity lens, but I think I don't want to say it's self-esteem, but I don't know if I've ever been the person that can really, walk in with their chest completely up and you know, eyes forward and ready to rock and roll. So those are the areas. My growth areas probably is kind of blending that curiosity, that humility, with also being confident and assertive. And those two things aren't mutually exclusive. And I'm working on those as we speak, right? Because there's also false humility. Humility is not meekness. You know, curiosity is not being confident in what you do know. So I think I'm kind of going in a little bit of a circle here, but yeah, curiosity, I think it's one of the greatest gifts you can have, right? Instead of seeing a problem and thinking that it's a problem, you look at it from a curiosity lens. You go, okay, how can we fix this thing? What's the opportunity here? That's a great gift, but you also have to balance that sometimes with also not being as confident as you can be as well.
Yeah, no, I think that you hit a lot of points on that answer there, which is really cool. The biggest one for me is the balance between humility and confidence.
Yeah.
There's this thing going around. I don't know. Have you ever Googled confidence?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so if you Google confidence, the second response on the Google list is the 50 most arrogant or egotistical players of all time. Like,
sure.
I'm like, when did confidence get lumped into arrogance and, you know, this cockiness? That's what it says. It's cockiness. Yeah. And I think it pushes people away from being confident and into maybe a false humility for fear of being called something that they're not. So sure. How do we help kids or even coaches be more confident and push that envelope of, you know, more than you're projecting? You know, how do we help them get out of that shell? Because I think there's a lot of coaches like that are curious, that are very intelligent, that want to share knowledge, but they don't know how to go deliver that message. Yeah,
I mean, to me, Charlie, that's $1 million question, right? Like that's the $1 million question. Is something we all grapple with, and it's a fascinating question, and it makes me pause. So one, I think there's probably some reflecting that needs to take place. Like, so why am I this way, right? Mm-hmm. And I've done this. You know, I'm very I've thought about this quite a bit for myself. I'm very proud of the way I was raised, but I was always told that, you know, and I was coming up, I was a very good basketball player and you know, obviously had some success in baseball, but I was told that, you know, I may score 30 points in a basketball game at night and then be shoved in the driveway when I got home. You know, like there wasn't any special treatment because of what I did. And a quick story, I remember I hit a big home run, and I remember putting my hand up and throwing it right down because I remember thinking, like, if my dad sees me showing it outward, like putting toward myself, he's going to be upset with me. And that's a little bit false. Like that was in my head more than in reality. But I think some of that goes back from me is like how I was raised. So and once again, you get the yin and the yang with that. I think I'm very proud of that because I think that's allowed me to have great relationships, allows me to be very approachable, those types of things. But it has affected my confidence. So I think if you're going down this journey, you have to start by going, okay, why am I this way, right? And then also, am I not confident because I haven't put the work in? Like that's the other part of this. So do I really know what I'm talking about, or am I saying I'm not confident, but I really haven't put the work in? So I think you have to unpack that a little bit. I do. I don't think there's one simple thing. I know I went to, and I'm talking too much here, but I went to an Anthony Robbins event, and I always laugh when I say that because people think that's kind of hokey, but it was really good. He talked a lot about trying to own the room in that moment. Like, so when that time comes, you're a performer. You almost have to switch and put it on. So if I go in and I'm talking to it in front of our players, I personally have to give myself a little pep talk to go in there and deliver a big moment. So I think for adults, coaches, leaders, I think reflection's big. I think really understanding, why am I in this position? Like, have I put the work in? And then also owning it like a performer, like it's a performance. So players, like athletes, yeah, you want to be humble off the field, but on the field, we want them to be a dog, right? We want them to go after it. And the same thing's true in our leadership journey. So kind of hitting a lot of different areas there, but I do think it starts with that reflection piece.
So talk to me a little bit about what are some of the ways that you reflect for yourself?
You're really good, by the way, Charles. This is a great interview. These are great questions.
I appreciate that.
How do I reflect? Writing. That's probably my biggest way. So I think you can do a couple of things. You can write. You can have conversations, like really deep conversations with people that are thinking on the same wavelength, not necessarily with the same thoughts, but that are willing to go deep with you. Mm-hmm. So you can write. That for me, writing's a very powerful thing for me. Having great conversations, reading, that type of thing, that's going to force some reflection as well. And then just some time in silence. For some people, that's prayer. Some people, it's meditation. But I think just creating that space in such a busy world, and busy is a choice. I don't. People will say, "Oh, you're really busy." I don't like to be called busy. I'm not. I want to create time. But you have to create space to actually reflect. And I think that's a very big competitive advantage too. I think it's a major competitive advantage, creating that time, because we all get caught up in the to-do list and knocking off tasks, but having time to think and reflect, and that reflection is going to bring up awareness, which was really cool to hear you say earlier, how you become aware that I'm actually really good as an assistant. Sometimes I'm as a head coach, I'm not. And that awareness then leads to values, like you understand what you value. And then from there, you can deploy that in how you want to communicate going toward a mission moving forward. So it's, to me, there's a little process there. You have reflection, you have awareness, you have values, you have communication. And then as a leader, it becomes how are we going to try to move our people toward that common goal through that process.
Yeah, I think that's a valuable piece, because I think a lot of times we get caught up in the day to day, and we don't stop to reflect on where we're at, what we're trying to accomplish now, where we're going next. Like all those things change over time, just like we evolve as leaders.
Think about that, right? You could waste, I don't want to say waste, you could spend a week, 2 weeks without really pausing at all, easily, right? From all the distractions that there are. So yeah, sometimes we think we're busy, but then when we do have time, what do? And I'm guilty of this as well. We pick up our phone, we check our Twitter feed, we check our Facebook, right? We text someone that we don't really need to text, but we just try to get something going there. So we can go week, 2 weeks, a month without ever going, okay, like checking in with yourself. How am I doing? Where are we going? Those types of things. It's a world right now where busyness is promoted and celebrated, but I don't think it's very effective.
Yeah, I think we're unintentionally busy because of the distractions of today's world. Like, you're so easily taken away from the tasks by grabbing your phone and flipping through Twitter real quick, because you have 5 minutes between this and that, instead of focusing or doing your reflection. Then you spend 5 minutes flipping through this, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh shoot, it's 20 minutes. I'm supposed to be doing something else. Yeah, you got five minutes. You get that. That's, you can do a powerful prayer in that time. You can do a powerful meditation in that time frame. Exactly. But instead you find out what's going on all over the world for whatever reason, right? What storms moving through, or some other piece of nonsense that you don't really need to know about. So exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So you mentioned for your reflection, the reading and writing is a big part of your time for that. Were you always a big reader?
You know what? I became a reader. I would say in college, I was struggling offensively, and I read a book by H.A. Dorfman. It was like The Mental Game of Baseball, and it changed my career. It changed my career, like it really did. And then I was at a convention, a coaching convention. So I was kind of like, I got a little spark there. Then I was at a coaching convention, and it was the president for Orlando Magic. I can't remember the guy's name, but his name is Pat something or other. But anyways, he mentioned that if you read a book a week, and you do that for 10 years, over that time frame, you're gonna have read like 500 books. And if you read 500 books on any topic, you become an expert. And I thought that, I was like, man, that's an amazing gift. And so from there, I really started dialing into reading, and I just started becoming someone who consumed a ton, and it became a competitive advantage for me. I feel like when I was reading, I was learning, and I was trying to get ahead in our field. At the time, I was an assistant coach, and like, what can I bring there? What can I bring to the team from something I read? And so that started the journey. And I don't know if I ever read 52 books in a year. I don't know if I ever made quite that. And honestly, it's slowed way down now. We have 4 kids. I don't read it at the same volume that I used to. But I think I've become creative in other ways. I think a lot of it's conversations, podcasts, little short articles, but just trying to be someone who's just obsessed, and I don't use that word lightly, but obsessed with learning and trying to get better. I do still feel like I'm in that space.
That's awesome. And for me, like I'm a similar way. I didn't read a whole lot in high school. I didn't like reading at all.
Right.
I thought, I think part of it was because they assigned readings that I was like, I have no desire to read this. I mean, I read one book in high school, and it was The Damn Yankees.
Yeah.
That was the only book I can remember reading in high school.
Right.
But then I went to college.
Changes, right? Like once you start finding your niche a little bit, is that what you did?
Yeah. So I finished college, and I was in a bad place mentally because the way my college career ended, and I was upset and I was disappointed because I always had this dream of playing pro, and it just kind of like fizzled out. And so I'm sitting at home, and I grab a book, Mind Gym. Have you ever read it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And from there, that sparked my love of the game again. It sparked my love of putting in the work and doing the things that I know I was good at. And ever since, I never made another attempt to go back into baseball, like from a player standpoint, but I felt good about where I was, and I knew that I had more to give. And that's where it led to coaching and different things like that. And since then, I try to do as many books as I can. I do a lot on Audible because my reading speed is not great.
Sure. Yeah.
So it allows for me to drive to work and back, a couple times a day. I get 20, 25 minutes of listening time. And it's all about the learning piece for me.
What does it do for you besides the learning? Is there anything else? I mean, you mentioned a couple of things there, but is there anything else that reading, why does it fire you up so much?
It sparks my creativity. So it feeds into my curiosity because I'm very curious too. I want to know why things are the way they are, how great people become great. What's their secret? What's the sauce that, what do they do different? And for me, they'll say something and I'll think about, okay, did I apply this at all in my life? Can I apply it at this point? Is it too late? Or are there ways I can do it now? Or can I instill it into somebody else that I'm working with? How can I put that into this kid's who's struggling in school to make them understand that this piece of it is going to help them with their athletics by picking up the math book that they don't want to touch.
Right.
And it opens doors to see different things that are happening in the room when sometimes we get so stuck that, we're sitting there in front of our computer and all we see is the computer, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in the room right now.
Sure.
And it opens that door for me.
That's really good. That's a really great way of saying it. I feel like writing does that for me as well. That's how. So I went from reading a ton to then writing, and I've had people take shots at me like saying, you try to tell people what to do or whatever, and that's the opposite. I write only to clarify my thoughts. So because I do consume a lot, I do listen a lot, I am curious, and then you have all this stuff up here, right? Because you're learning, and writing then allows me to put it down and provide a little bit of a framework for whatever it may be, how I want to present this information to an athlete, how I want to convey a message with my wife, how I want to talk to my children. So that's my outlet there is, okay, I have all this stuff now. And I think that's a challenge and a pitfall for some right now. There's endless amounts of information that you can consume. So then it becomes, what do I consume? And then it becomes, what do I do with what I consume, right? So, and that's where writing comes into play for me. Some people don't need that avenue. Some people can distill and filter it better than I can. For me, writing clarifies that. And if nothing else, I think it makes me a better conversationalist because I have some thoughts formulated in my mind already.
I spend a lot of time writing as well. I'm actually trying to work through writing. It'd be my first book on like the greatness topic that I'm enjoying pursuing right now and chasing. But I've written a bunch of stuff. I started writing in college. So when my baseball career ended, I was still in school. So I had to find ways to take my focus and energy that used to go into playing to do other things. So I would go to the gym for 4 hours when my guys were at practice. But then when they were gone for the weekend, I was like, I can't live in the gym. That's not going to work. So I started writing, and it was a great outlet for me to, again, like you said, take the knowledge that I'm taking in and put it somewhere else and be creative in the same time, because you can't just regurgitate what other people have said. You have to then, what does that mean to you? How does that look from your lens?
Yeah.
How do you balance putting stuff out there in the world that you feel is valuable and that you've learned? And like you said, you are getting like negative feedback from people, I guess, which is just, it seems silly to me because every person has things to offer that can make your life better or make your teachings more powerful, no matter who they are, whether they're the highest level or the beginning of the bottom of the whatever. They all have lessons that they can tell and stories that they can tell. So how do you balance that for yourself of hearing this feedback and then still going, yeah, I'm going to keep writing?
I'm much better with it. I'm much better. Look, I'm not a natural writer. If you would have told me I write a book and write a weekly newsletter, that wouldn't, even in college, that probably wouldn't have been what most people thought. I can't say that. I bet there were some people that believed in it, but I didn't see it. I didn't see that vision yet. I think one, you just like, hitting send is one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And I say one of, not the best. There's been other things, but hitting send, it has opened up a whole different world for me. It's opened up a whole different world to have conversations like this, some of the interesting people that I've been able to meet. So for every critic, there's I don't know, there's so many more people who enjoy. And so that gives you confidence to keep going and gives you encouragement to keep going. But I think, even more than that is by me writing and sharing my thoughts, the best thing. So I'm a learner at heart. What that does, it allows people to respond to what you write, and then they give you their feedback. And I'm not saying feedback like you should use the colon and not a comma, or I disagree, but it's just, hey, I had a similar thought. Here's my kind of take on it. And it just opens people up to then communicate with you. So it's been the best learning tool for me, and the conversations that I've been able to have because of it, and some of the rooms that I've been able to get into because of it, all from sharing, all from having the courage to share. So yeah, you're gonna, any high performer, and I'm not saying I'm a high performer, I'd like to be on that pathway. But anybody who's willing to share, any athlete that's willing to put themselves out there, any business person who's going to make tough decisions, it's going to come with a level of criticism. It just is. And so for me, I've learned to embrace that, going, you know what, like I'm now in common with some of these people who take a lot of heat. Like that's pretty cool, so you can go to your grave having all these great ideas and no one knowing about them, or you have to be willing to put yourself out there and see what happens. And if anyone's listening or anyone's thinking about doing it, I'm just encouraging you to give it a whirl, because what you'll find are the people who truly care about you and your happiness and your well-being. They're going to be your biggest supporters. And the hate to use a cliche, but the haters are just the haters. They're just people that are jealous that they don't have the courage to do it a lot of times. And so I'm not going to listen to that noise.
Right. And a lot of times what I've noticed is the people who talk the loudest in a negative sense are always a rung or two below you on the ladder.
Yeah. That's a good point. When
you're chasing something special, when you're trying to achieve, like you said, you're on the path to trying to achieve excellence and greatness, and you're working your way towards that top, you're moving up the ladder, and the people who are stuck at the bottom, afraid to take action, are usually the loudest critics. And they're the ones that are screaming at you saying, you shouldn't have done that. You're not ready to be there, because they're not ready to be there.
They're not ready. That's right. And what I'm really proud of is that, I started this when in 2015 or 6, before like our program has gotten to the point where it is now. And so I let people get a sneak peek on how we were trying to do this, like how I, and you expose yourself, you put yourself out there, and it leads for people to say, oh, maybe if he wasn't writing so much, maybe they'd be a better baseball program or whatever. But people don't get it. Like it's all good. All I can say is that by putting yourself out there, it's opened up a whole new learning world for me. Some of like I said, and I'm not saying that to brag, but some of the rooms I get to be in now, I take all that information and I can apply it to the people that I directly impact, our team, our coaches, our players, those around me. But I would never have been there if I was just, if I wouldn't have hit send all those years ago. So right. It's, I'm smiling as I'm talking about it, not because, and once again, it's from a place of humility, but it's more because what it's done for me and the happiness and the fulfillment of my life.
Yeah, no, and that's such an awesome story and journey. And I hope to see it continue to grow, because I think there's a lot of value that you bring to the things that you're selling and the things that you're saying and the things that you're giving back to the community. And there's a lot to that. One of the things that stood out in your answer is the ability to take action, to try something that you weren't comfortable with or that kind of puts you out there. What I want to know is, what do you think of J.R. Smith going back to college and putting himself out there and trying to do something different on a new journey to greatness as a golfer now?
Now, did you read my newsletter this week?
I haven't read that one yet, so I just saw the picture, but it's been exciting.
Okay, but it's out there. It's okay. I thought that I was saying, man, that's completely random if you just asked that question. No, yeah, I think it's phenomenal. I still don't quite have the language for it, but all I can tell you is that it just warms me up. Like, that story is very heartwarming for me. And so I wrote about it, and I put some of the things that I enjoyed. Like, I think it's really cool to see someone who has achieved 2 NBA rings, made a lot of money, to go back and become a collegiate student and play a collegiate athlete and play golf, which, he's only picked up in his adulthood. Like, to get uncomfortable as an adult is really hard. I'm always amazed by parents. We tell our kids to get in uncomfortable situations, do this, but most adults aren't willing to put themselves in any uncomfortable situations. So I really admire JR for that. I've enjoyed watching LeBron James and Steph Curry, David Banner, all these people that are going, like, singing his praise, like, thank you for doing this for our community, because he's also modeling the importance of education to a lot of people that's obviously important to him. But I'm going to bring it full circle here. Probably what a reader of mine sent me a message and said that, in Denver, he wasn't a very good seed. He wasn't a role model in any way, shape, or form as a player. But that person said, I'm rooting for him because it's a redemption story. And I think that's what it is for me as well. Like, J.R. Smith wasn't seen as, and I don't know J.R. Smith, I have no idea, but he wasn't in that light of someone like a role model type of player, right? He had his off the court issues and things like that. But I don't know, to see somebody who struggled and is trying to do better, I think that's probably what it is for me more than anything. And I didn't know that when I was typing it. You won't see that in the newsletter, but I think that's what it is. It's a redemption story. And I'm just one of those people, Charles. I pull for happiness, man. I pull for people to do better. And so I'm sure there's people that have read that and go, oh, he's a bum. He'll make some mistakes. I don't think like that. I think this is a really cool thing. And I'm rooting like crazy for him. And if he makes a mistake, guess what? He's still not a bum in my eyes. He's just somebody that's trying to do better. And he fell off the wagon a little bit. But anyways, I love it. I love that story. It warms me up.
No, I think there's a lot of value to be learned in this story too, because if you think about it, he's achieved the highest level you can in the sport. He's a champion. He played in the NBA. He didn't have to go back to college. He didn't have to put himself out there either as wanting to play golf and be an athlete. Like, that didn't have to be a story that at all. And he put himself out there to get uncomfortable, to pursue a new avenue. And I think people, and that's one of the curious things for me, is that people who want to be great will always find the next thing to want to be great at. And that's kind of the thing with Kobe. He retired and he started doing movies and he started writing and doing these things. And now you got JR and he's pursuing a new path and he's going back to school and he's putting himself, like you said, in the uncomfortable situations.
And he's challenging himself. How much easier it'd be for him to like use his platform. It'd be easy for him to just say, hey kids, you ought to care about your education and care about school. And for him, like, that's easy, right? But for him, he said, okay, I'm actually going to put myself in school. I'm actually going to, you just follow his Twitter feed. It's not PG, but I love it. I love it because it's him. Like you can hear his voice. You can hear his voice in his tweets. And he's out there and he's struggling in this class and he's got a tutor and he's doing all the things that we ask kids to do, but he's actually doing it. It'd be like, once again, I'm driving home, but it'd be so much easier to say, hey, if you're struggling in school, you ought to go get a tutor. Well, he's struggling in school, he's getting a tutor and he's telling everybody about it. And that's the more I live this leadership journey, actions and behaviors are way, way, way more powerful than any words that we say, right?
Great.
People are watching you. They're not listening. They're listening some, but they're watching. And if those behaviors don't match what you're saying, nobody cares. Nobody cares if J.R. Smith says, go get an education. Him putting action and behaviors behind it, way, way more impactful. And I know we'll never know how big of an impact he has. We'll never know that. That's really hard to quantify.
Mm-hmm.
But my guess is it's making a difference that he'll never quite know. And how cool is that?
Oh, I agree. I think it's a very special story. I'm rooting for him too. I know he's, like you said, he's had some issues and he's done some things and whatever else, but that idea is that we can all learn from our mistakes. We can all come back and be stronger. To put yourself out there is the true challenge of life.
And once again, I think that's like the writing piece for me. You open yourself up. You open yourself up, and the critics will point their fingers when you stumble, but it doesn't matter. Like the people who really matter, who really care, who really get it, they're not thinking like that. They're just rooting for you, right? They're rooting, and they understand that we're human, and humans make mistakes. But you're going to make mistakes if you're behind a rock hiding or if you're out in front of it. But it's better to be out in front and trying to take that massive action towards your goals.
No, I absolutely agree. So as we wind down here, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I do have one more question I want to ask as far as on your quest to understanding and learning more about leadership. Who are some of the impactful leaders that you've had a chance to be around who have really challenged you or changed you in some way?
Oh my, to me, it's everybody from the coaches that I work with, from Kyle Lindquist, who was a former assistant of mine. He's now with the Cleveland Indians organization, to Ryan Romick, who's our current assistant, who's just a phenomenal, person and smart and articulate. And, so it's the people you work with every day, people in the hallway that I'm in right now. So it's there, but I think my journey has brought some special people to me. Clint Hurdle from the former Pirate manager is someone who has a big influence on me. I don't want to name drop, but there's just been so many people that because of this, my eyes have been opened. So like I said, I can run a list of names, but I just think it's more. I think it's more just the everyday encounters, everyday interactions. How
about this? How about a story from a time early in your coaching career that made you change the path of your leadership? Is there something that happened that you were heading a certain way and you got, oh, okay, I like this. Let's go this way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one would be, we won our first national championship at Marietta in 2006. And that year, I still felt like we had some things that I thought our practice, I thought we could do a little bit better in some different ways. And so I sent out, this is kind of twofold, but I was really trying to find another job, like trying to move up the ladder. And so I sent out 25 emails plus to the top 25 programs, Division I programs, said I'd volunteer, do whatever. Didn't hear much, but I heard back from Coach Corbin at Vanderbilt. And so anyways, I got the email back from him, sent a response at 5:30 in the morning because I heard he's up, early riser, sent a 5:30 in the morning email. He said, come down and watch practice. So we went down and watched. And that moment changed the way that I run a program, the way that we run practice, the way that I lead, having that. And then that relationship formed from there and kind of grew. But my eyes that day, I went, oh my gosh, like this is how I want to do baseball. And I think to give a little context, though, it is important. We were coming off of winning a national championship, so we had reached the pinnacle of our level. But I still, like, this kind of opened my eyes up to some things. So that was a moment where, you kind of throw it out the window and go, okay, someday when I get to run a program, I want to do it somewhat like this, and not exactly like that, but
Right.
Along that direction. So that was probably the biggest moment for me. The biggest kind of aha moment was that in 2006, seeing Vanderbilt practice.
That's pretty awesome to have people like Corbin in the game willing to reach out to say, yeah, come on down, check us out, see what we got going on. And almost in a sense, mentoring you without taking you on as a mentor, like he showed you a peep through the window to say, hey, look, this is what we do.
Yeah, that was it. It's a great way of saying it too. What, it's not a relationship where you have to like talk every, week, and, it was more, this is like, here's a little sneak peek behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a lot of those sneak peeks now over the years into different high level people, regardless of position, whether that's a president of a company or someone who's just a killer in the classroom, a great teacher. I've had a lot of those sneak peeks, and I think that to me that's been really, really powerful for me. So where I used to read, maybe not a book a week, but probably a book every 2 weeks, that slowed down, but those intense conversations like that has sped up, tenfold. And that's where my greatest learning now takes place.
Yeah, I think that's the key right there is you started by reading, you picked yourself in an advantage by learning that way. And now you get to see it firsthand, which is almost, I think, more valuable because you get to see the learning in action. You get to see what they're preaching on the page, but how it looks in real life. And I think that's some of the hardest parts for a lot of coaches. You can read a lot of books on people and be like, man, I'm going to be like Wooden, or I'm going to be like, Krzyzewski or whatever it may be. But if you don't see it and you're not there, and you have to apply your thing.
You're so right. And those books sometimes, I wrote I have by air parentheses a negative article about John Wooden, not negative, but he gets put on the pedestal as, but he was flawed too, So sometimes when you read books, like you get someone's highlight reel, you get and so sometimes you get in the arena, get in those environments, and actually see the flaws as well, right? Like that's, I worry about that for coaches. I worry right now the way we're being asked, like you almost have to be perfect. And people will call on the John Woodens, but I mean, there's stories of John Wooden going after guys in the shower and, like yelling and straight. So like everyone has these mistakes. And I think that's the cool thing. Like, so you read like that provides a certain base level, but to be able to be to be in close proximity of high performing people is it's probably the most powerful thing you can do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's one of the main reasons why I started this podcast, is because I get to have awesome conversations with people like yourself and some of the other great coaches in the area. I've been really lucky to have some people on that have challenged the way I think and see things, and opened my eyes to some different ideas to continue to pursue my growth. And I'm hoping that's helping the listeners as well, as far as opening doors and making them challenge themselves and look internally and just grow. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Can we keep growing?
Yeah, we talked about it earlier, but when you asked me about writing, like, so I put it out there. I'm really writing for myself, but then I put it out there. Same thing you're doing this podcast, right? Like you're doing this for your growth, but then people find value hopefully in what's out there. So it's a win-win, right? You're always looking to me, I'm always looking for win-wins, looking to be able to add value and have value added to me. And you having me on the show today adds value, because I have to pause in a busy world and I have to go, this is reflection for me, right? Yeah. This is a busy time of year for me. But taking this, 35, 45 minutes forces me to reflect on my thoughts and get a little bit more awareness of where I need to go. So I appreciate your journey as well, because it's a very similar thing through the podcast. Yes, you're learning, but you're also helping others along the way.
Oh, absolutely. Awesome. And again, thank you so much for taking time with me today. What I want to do now is give you a chance. Where can they kind of connect? Where can my listeners connect with you? Follow what you're doing next. Obviously the website and some of those things, and I'll put it in the show notes after.
Yeah. So one, Charles, I just want to acknowledge this. You are really good at what you do. I've been fortunate to be on several podcasts, and your preparation, your level of detail, you can tell that this is something that you're really good at. So keep going, man. Keep doing what you're doing. As far as where to find me, coachmikedeegan.com is you can get on there, and that's where you can sign up for my newsletter. It's free. Get on there and check that out. I have a book that's on Amazon, Let It Rip. And then I also have some courses on clearlearn.com. Clearlearn.com a course on leadership, and then a course on people development or coaching development, however you want to call it. So those are the three big areas: website, book, and then website's free, book a little bit more. And then lastly, the course is available on clearlearn.com.
Well, awesome. I'll make sure I direct people towards that in the show notes. Thank you again for taking time today. It's been an absolutely awesome conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
As always, guys, keep reaching for the stars, fall flat on your face. But remember, whenever we fall, always get up. Thank you for joining us today on the Edge of Greatness podcast. If you haven't yet, please take a minute now to subscribe and review our show. Join us again next week as we continue to dig deeper into the key components of greatness. The path to greatness is never linear, so remember to keep pursuing greatness no matter what. Keep stretching your abilities, reach for the stars, and fall flat on your face. But remember, no matter what happens, whenever we fall, always get up. Until next time, I'm Charles Schultz, and this was the Edge of Greatness podcast.